Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar in which we are going to discuss how to ace GMAT in 4 weeks. Before I get started, I would like to know whether you can hear me loud and clear or not. So a quick hi, hello in the chat box if you can hear me clearly, and with that we can get started. Um, Also, those of you who are here, please let me know, at what stage of your prep you are in. How are you done with your GMAT? Have you completed your basics? Are you, in the fine-tune phase? Are you taking mocks? Are you retaking GMAT? Any kind of problems, any kind of doubts that you want me to cater in this webinar, please feel free to put in the chat box, and I will be more than happy to take it up during the webinar. So in the meantime, I'll be, while you're typing your responses, I will very quickly introduce myself. My name is Saquib, and I am the co-founder of GMAT and GREWhiz. I'm also the principal architect of the GMAT intelligence that you see on the platform. So those of you who haven't tried the GMATWhiz platform, I would highly recommend to do it. It's a highly personalized platform. I've been in the tech industry for close to 12 years now. And, I love taking aptitude tests. I've taken the GMAT myself, and I was 760 on the GMAT with a perfect, Q51 and a V40. Uh, so that's briefly about me. Let's get started with the main agenda, and let me talk about how do you prepare for the GMAT in 4 weeks. Now, while I was thinking about it, I had to come up take up some assumptions, right? Because technically, it's not easy to prepare for GMAT. So what I did was, while coming up with the plan, there are certain assumptions that I've kept in mind, and there are basically two which I've kept in mind. The first assumption is that I'm assuming at this point of time that if you want to take your GMAT in 4 weeks, then you're almost done with the basics, right? So you know the basics of quant, the basics of verbal, and now you're in the phase. I ideally shouldn't call it fine-tune phase. I should call it a final phase. I should ideally call it fine-tune phase. So I did in a phase where you're trying to do practice and where you're trying to take mocks and figure out where you need to improve, or you might fall under the category which is you are planning to. You might have taken the GMAT once and you're planning to take it in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I think. For these two categories, creating a 4 week plan does make sense. Now, I'm sure some of you might be here and you might have this question in mind. Um, I'm preparing from scratch. Can I follow this 4 week plan? Now, the answer to this question is it depends. Okay. When I say it depends, what I mean by that is how well versed are you with the quant and the verbal section? Have you taken aptitude tests before? Do you have any idea how about SCCRRC, or are you good with quant? What stage are you in? If you're starting really from scratch with no idea about quant verbal at all, haven't taken any aptitude test, then it might be slightly difficult to follow this plan. But I would still recommend that you watch it, because at some point of time, obviously you will come to this stage, right? Once you're done with the basics, and you might want to complete your prep in 4 weeks. How do you do that is something that I'm definitely going to discuss. Okay. In the meantime, again, I don't see anything in the chat box. I'll highly encourage you to ask questions, guys. If you're here, if you have any questions regarding how to prepare in 4 weeks, or if you have any specific doubts regarding to your GMAT prep in general, also please feel free to let me know in the chat box. Okay. So I hope this part is clear. So these are my two assumptions, that either you are done with your basics or either you're retaking a GMAT. So do let me know at what stage of your prep you are in. So when I was trying to create the plan of action, I kind of divided the prep into four to 2 weeks or 1.5 weeks, the way you can put it in this way. So ideally, once you're done with your basics, once you've understood the different parts of SCCRRC and number properties, algebra, word problem, const section, basically, then students really do not know what to do next, and most of them would want to go ahead and take mocks. But I would recommend not to do that. What I would recommend is in the first 1.5 week, and that is why you would notice that I've kind of put the line somewhere here. I would say in the first 1.5 weeks, ideally you should spend on analyzing your strengths and weaknesses and try and figure out how to improve. And then I'll talk elaborately on this, so don't worry. But I'm just trying to give you a high-level idea on how I've broken down the plan and what exactly am I going to discuss. Then once the 1.5 weeks are done, where you've done your strength weakness analysis and you've worked on your improvement part, then ideally you should spend the remaining 1.5 weeks, I would say, on taking walks and sectionals and coming up with a strategy based on what have you realized about your strengths or weaknesses, what is your target score, and some other factors which again I'm going to take care of. But yeah, understanding for first 1.5 week working on your strengths and weaknesses, next 1.5 week working on marks, sectionals and strategy, and finally the last week, what kind of revision should you do, and ideally you should rest a bit also. A lot of people push to the last day, which I really don't want you to do. So I'm going to talk a bit about that aspect also. Okay. So let me talk about the first 2 weeks. What should you do in the first 10 to 12 days? So again, with the assumption that you've completed the quant and verbal section, at least one round of it, what ideally you need to do is try and figure out where are you still struggling with, or what are your strengths and weaknesses. Uh, you might ideally you might be using a course, you might be preparing through free resources. If you're creating an error log also, that's totally fine. Use that error log or use the course that you're using to figure out in which areas are you facing conceptual issues, and in which areas you're facing application related issues. Now what I've done is to make life easy for you, or how to figure that out. The simple way to do is just go and check in which topics your skill score is less than 60, less than 60, less than 55. You can, there's a leave your 5 percentage points here and there, but try and see in which areas your skill score is less than 60. And if your score is less than 60, closer to 50, then there's a good chance that there's a conceptual gap also. Okay, there's a conceptual gap. You might not be really well versed with the concept. But however, places where your score is between 60 to 80, then that means your concept is good. Okay. So as far as concept is concerned, well done. You understand the concept, but you might not be applying it properly in maybe difficult questions, or there could be some other application related issues, or something which we call as which most of the students call it silly mistakes, which I don't really like to call it, but there could be some other issues because of which you might be making a mistake, which we need to figure out. Okay, so one way is, as I said, if you have courses that you're using and if you have some data points, use it. At GMATWhiz, we have this data. If you're using something else, just go ahead and look at this first. I'm not talking about anything greater than 80, because if it's greater than 80, then ideally you can consider that topic to be your strength. You don't need to work on it. Kiran, I can see a question in the chat. I can see your question. Don't worry, I'll take it up. When I'm talking about when I move to the fine tune phase a little bit. Okay, I hope that's okay with you. Um, so once you understand this, what do you do next? One thing which I would add here is that it is quite possible that some of you who are using free resources might not have this data at this point of time. Then what you can do is you can take sectional tests if you want to, either through, if you're using GMAT Club, you can use GMAT Club, or through any place, paid services if you want to use. Try and take the sectional test on each module. When I say module, what I mean is SC, CR, RC, WP, Algebra, Geo, and NP. Takes a sectional test and do at least 30 to 40 questions in each one, in each module, and from there try and figure out in which concepts it's a skill score is less than 60, in which one it is between 60 to 80. If you can spare more time, again, there are people who might have more time per week. They might be giving 30 hours, 35 hours per week. Some of you might be working. You might be able to give 15 to 20 hours per week. Depending on that also, you can tweak your strategy here. So if you have more time in your hand, let's say I talk to a lot of students and they say, hey, I have a whole day to prepare. What should I do? Should I do just 30, 40 questions? Now, if you want more accurate data, then you can even, split this further. You can take these tests in bunches. Maybe do, for essay sentence correction, you can club subject verb pairs, tenses, all of this together, take test separately on modifiers, take test separately on comparison, and do even a finer, minute level analysis and figure out whether do you have conceptual gap or application gap. If you're short on time, if you're working, I can understand that you might not have that much time to go through each and every topic level quizzes. Then at least the fastest way would be to take at least module level quizzes, and then based on that, figure out what kind of gaps do you have. Okay, that's step number one. If you have any questions at this point of time, please feel free to ask. Um, Kiran, just to answer your question, just in the meantime, I'm waiting for you to put responses. Can you tell me, Kiran, how much time can you give on a weekly basis? because if you're preparing with work, it depends, on what kind of how hectic is your work. Can you spare 1-2 hours a day also? If you can, and if you can spend 4 hours, 5 hours over the weekends, then that still gives you about 15 to 20 hours, right? Somewhere along those lines. If you're able to give 15 to 20 hours also, that is pretty good enough to prepare for the GMAT. Okay. And again, I'm assuming that you're done with the course if you're talking about this 4-week plan. But do let me know if there's any special constraints and under which you're asking this question. But so far, I hope the core issue is clear. Once you understand the core issue, guys, you know uh, so you what you'll realize is that maybe in concept level specific issues, you might see that you might be making mistakes in specific topics. So for example, you might notice that you're making mistakes in, say, bold base, or you might not be good with PNC, or comparison SC. I've seen people facing issues in this, right? And application related issue would be, for example, whenever you have an application related issue, there are two issues basically you will notice. Either you are making mistakes in difficult questions, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that you might be taking a lot of time. So you might be getting the questions correct, but the timing would be very high. And how many of you fall in this category? Because this is the kind of conversation that I have on I would say at least 4 to 5 students on a weekly basis tell me about this thing. Ki, hey Saqib, I have if you give me time, I will be able to solve this question, sentence correction question, and word problem question, whatever be it. But the moment I'm given 2 minutes to solve that question, I end up making a mistake. How many of you are fall under this category, guys? Okay, Kiran, if you can give 20-25 hours, I think that's a pretty decent amount of time. Um, the way I would kind of break your prep would be, especially people who are working, is that you utilize your weekends to do the bulk of the studies. Okay, like for example, if you want to learn any new concept, so for example, if you are planning to study say sentence correction, for example, then what you can do is on the weekends, you can Saturday, Sunday, you can plan what concepts that you want to learn. Okay, so for example, you can decide, okay, on Saturday and Sundays I'll try and complete modifiers and comparison. Okay, because it is best to complete it in a stretch, one particular topic. And what you can do over the weekdays, because you're working, you might not have a lot of time, and ideally you might be studying just before going to work, then you can use those weekdays to kind of plan your practice. So, before going to work, maybe in the morning, you can take your test on modifiers if you've studied modifiers over the weekends. And then maybe in the evening, you can analyze your mistakes. Where did you make a mistake? What can you improve? And if you can give 2 hours in a stretch, that's best. Like in the morning, if you can do that, because all the mistakes would be fresh in your mind. So you take your test, you analyze it, and the next day you can repeat the same for some other topic if you want to. You can keep mini revisions in the weekdays, because that would not, take up a lot of effort to do. Okay, so I hope that answers your query. Um, Akash is asking what percentage of hard questions comes in the exam. Hey, Akash, it varies. Okay, so it depends. It's an adaptive test. So if you're doing well, then you might get 20 to 30% of the questions would be hard, or more than that also. Again, as I said, it's adaptive. But if you're not performing that well, in the first 7 questions, whatever medium questions you're given, and you get most of them if wrong, then you might, you might just be given mostly medium questions and easy questions. You would hardly get 3 to 4 hard questions, maybe not more than that. So yeah, to answer your question, it depends. So coming back to this, so as I told you that you could face timing issues, and you might take up a lot of time while solving questions. So one more thing that you need to keep in mind, and this is a very important thing, because I've seen people creating plans. Now, I know I mentioned at the back here that take 60% and 60 to 80% as a skills code to figure out the conceptual and application related issue. But one more thing that you need to keep in mind is your target score. Okay, let's say if your target score is just 680, okay, or your target score is 700 versus someone who's targeting a 760. Now, somebody who's targeting a 680, 700, you might not need to do well in all the topics. Okay, there could be certain topics where you might be happy with just a skill score of 60, because you just want to do the medium questions out there. Okay, if you're targeting a 760, however, obviously you need to get good at all the topics. Your skill score should ideally be most of the skill score should ideally be 70, 75 plus. Okay, so take that into account when you're identifying your core issues. How many of the topics fall under conceptual? If that's a lot, out of 30 topics, if 20 are in conceptual, you have conceptual issues, that's a red flag, because that's a red flag for both of them. Okay, but let's just say concept related issues, you realize, hey, there are only two topics there that I have, or three topics where I have conceptual related issue, but in most of them I have a skill score of say 70%. Then there's nothing much to worry about. Then you can take a call that if you can push your score, if your skill score is say 50, can you push it to 60, 65? If you can do that, that might be good enough for you, because your target score lies between 600, 680 to 700. Okay, so take that call judiciously. If you have a mentor, if you can talk to, I would recommend, talk to that mentor who can help you out figure which topics, if depending on your target score, if you can, whether you really need to push it to 80%, or is it okay to have the skill score between 70 only. Okay, now let's talk about, let's say you have identified, questions, that are topics in which there are concept related issues, and you've identified where application related issues. Now, if there are concept related issues, see, it's non-negotiable. You need to review the topics. You need to cover the conceptual gaps. Do you forget formulas? Have you forgotten the geometry formula? The properties of triangles or circles or 3D, whatever, right? Let's say, for example, if you're not able to apply the concepts of prime numbers, how to find total factors, even factors, all factors. If that is the case, you need to review the concept. Okay, that's step number one. Step number two, to validate that the concept is now good, you just you solve 10 questions at a time, and see if you're not making any mistakes anymore. Okay, if you're not making any mistakes, then you can take a sectional quiz. You can solve 30 to 40 questions in sets of 10, and then you can slowly gradually reduce time. So what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm ensuring that wherever there are concept related issue, I fix the concept first. Okay, concept fixing is done, and at the same time, I don't want to repeat the process again, that if I come into application and then fix that, I would want to ensure that I fix the application problem also at the same time. So I would gradually try and reduce my time also at the same time. Okay, and this is very important step, guys. You might feel, hey, Saquib, this seems like a lot of work to do, but what you will notice is, whenever, especially when people come in the fine-tune phase, you most of these students, they keep on practicing questions and questions and questions without even realizing whether they're improving or not. The fastest way to improve is to figure out where you are weak at. Okay, where you need more help, and what kind of help do you need. If it's a conceptual help, very quickly go through the concepts, because that's the fastest way to do it. Figure out, solve 10 questions, see what kind of accuracy you have. If accuracy is good, if it is 70, 80 skill score, then you can solve 30 to 40 questions in bunches of 10 and try and reduce time. Now, as far as reduction of time is concerned, uh, there are two things, and a reduction of time and accuracy, both things, by the way. If you want to work on this, there are two things that you need to take care of. By the way, I can see a question in the chat box. I fall in the category of getting questions correct in an untimed environment would falter under timing pressure. Okay, no, so that's what I'm going to take care here, or take care of. What do you exactly need to do to improve the timing thing? See, understand the reason that you take more time. There are two reasons. Okay, one obviously is a conceptual problem, that you might not know the concept only. So if you don't know the concept, obviously you will struggle to solve that question. But let's just say the concept is in place. The second reason, because of which you take time, be it quant or verbal, is in quant, maybe it could be because you are not applying, you don't know the methodology to solve the question. How do you approach that question? Because maybe you have tried that question before and you got it correct, and you did not review the solution properly. What's the fastest way to solve the question? Okay, in sentence correction, in critical reasoning, it's quite possible that in sentence correction you're not following a methodical approach. You're just trying to read the sentence very quickly. You want to save time, and then you start looking at the different options and try to figure out, okay, let me look at splits, try and figure out where I'm making a mistake, where are the different, where's the difference in the, and from there you try and figure out what could be the error, try and guess. But there's a problem out there in sentence correction. In difficult question, there's a possibility that two of the sentence might be grammatically correct, but meaning wise one of them might not make even sense, and you would be stuck, because you haven't you're just looking at grammatical errors. You haven't worked on the meaning perspective of it. Okay, because of that you might end up taking a lot of time. In critical reasoning, you might end up reading the stimulus very quickly, missing out on the important points, not doing any pre-analysis at all. And I'm not talking about pre-thinking, I'm just saying understanding the stimulus at a core level and trying to figure out what exactly is the conclusion, what are you trying to weaken, what are you trying to strengthen. That might not be really clear. You're just reading the stimulus to get a high level understanding of it. So when you move on to these options, 2 to 3 options might look correct. And that could happen because you did not clearly understand the role each and every part of the stimulus is playing. So what I would recommend, learning once you learn the concept, what you ideally need to do is, you need to actively try and apply the methodology of that concept. So how are the way we teach in sentence correction to do the meaning analysis first. In the critical reasoning, we tell you to understand the scope of the argument really well. So these kind of things, and in quant also, by the way, when you're doing, say for example, difficult DS questions, a lot of people just read the question statement and start analyzing the statements. But did you try and actually figure out what are they asking in a data sufficiency question? In fact, this was something which I was discussing this weekend when I was taking a quant webinar. When I asked them, sometimes in difficult in some difficult in DS questions, basically they don't ask you the question directly. They might just ask, does X have two factors, two distinct factors? This is the example that I gave in the webinar. Does X have two distinct factors? Now, this, if somebody reads and move, ahead and solve the question, you might not even realize what you're trying to figure out. But this is just only asking you, hey, just tell me whether X is prime or not. Now, did you draw this inference or not? And this is a very basic example. In difficult questions, there are some really good questions where you might have to draw an inference, and what exactly do you need to find out? A lot of percentage based questions where you're trying to find out the ratio of percentages where two variables might be involved, and people end up thinking, okay, I want to find out this percentage, so I need the value of MNF, and that's a wrong inference that you draw. And some people might not even write this. But one of the more important inferences when you are trying to find out these kind of values, especially through DS questions, is that you might get the answer even if you know the relation between M and F. Like for example, if I tell you M is equal to 2F from one of the statements, if you get this, that is still enough to answer your question. What would be the percentage? I know these are random examples, but what I'm trying to say here is that most of the times you might know the concept, you might know how to write the percent, but you might not be working on your application pattern, how to apply it, what to infer. Okay. Same goes for sentence correction. You might know the different, the kind of modifiers, you might know the different kind of parallelisms, but you're not applying it properly because you're just looking for the errors and you're not trying to do the meaning analysis properly. So ideally, once if you fall in that category where your score is between 60 to 80 and you're taking more time or making mistakes, then while solving questions, and this is for both. This is, by the way, for both, wherever there's a concept related issue and where there's application related issue, please focus on reviewing the solutions, please. What the way we improved a lot, is by figuring out what is the best way to solve the question. Okay, if you really want to save time, this is the way you can, because you have to internalize the process. Please understand, it has to become second to nature, so that you don't make these kind of mistakes. Okay, so as I mentioned, so just to summarize this part, if you have a conceptual gap, review the concepts, do certain 10 to 15 questions to see whether the accuracy with conceptual knowledge is good. Once you cross that barrier, then you fall under the category where you just need to improve your application. So if you want to improve your application, please solve 30 to 40 questions, and again, depending on how much time that you have, but focus on reviewing your solutions really well so that you internalize the process really. Okay. If you have any questions at this point of time, please let me know. I'm going to cater another part of the process, which is very important, which is error logs. Anuj, I can totally understand that, as you said that when you're in the 20th question or 24th question and you're running out of time and then chuck the process completely. But again, as I said, if you're taking more time, that is because either the concept is not good or you're not applying the process efficiently, because we use the same process, right? Most of the people who are getting good scores are applying the same process only because that's the most efficient process. So ideally, you need to figure out why are you taking more time. And this is where, by the way, the logs will come into picture. Now, whenever I tell people to create an error log, what they do is they give me something like this. They'll tell me, what topic they have, what module does it belong to, the time. They'll tell me the time, whether they got it correct or not, what answer they marked, what was the official answer. They might tell me the difficulty level. In some cases, some people even give me the topic name. And what they usually do is they look at, they'll create a summary in Excel saying, oh, I have a 75% accuracy in critical reasoning, 70 here, 75 here. So I'm doing pretty well. But then why are you making this 26%? Where is this? Where are you going wrong? Or when you're getting the 74, is it a stabilized 74%, or are you making mistakes across different topics, or are you making mistakes in one particular topic again and again? Those kind of insights people don't really figure out. That's number one. Second thing which people don't figure out is the main core reason for making a mistake. Why are you taking 3 minutes? So you got it correct, good. But why did you take 3 minutes, 11 seconds to solve this question? Okay. Why did a sub 600 level question took you 2 minutes 15 seconds to do? Unless until you don't figure this out, you will not be able to improve your timing. So ideally, what I would recommend is, if you have 4 weeks in hand, if you're taking your test in 4 weeks, and if you're, if you have more time, then this is the right time to create a better error log, guys. What I ideally need to do is kind of, write down, create two more sections if you want to write down, type of mistake, and maybe create a comment column or something like this. So for example, if you're doing a critical reasoning question, you can write down what is the type of mistake that you made, or why did you take more time, type of mistake, or reason for taking more time, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so if you got it correct but you took more time, ideally you should write down why are you taking more time. So maybe you can write had to go back to stimulus twice, you know or maybe misread stimulus, something like this. And you can create, drop downs like this for standard drop downs for these things. You could, one of them could be misread stimulus, one of them could be, couldn't identify, say, parallelism in the question, or got, biased by a particular error. Why I'm saying this is that you should have standardized error and comments, because, once you are done, remember, I'm telling you to do 30-40 questions, right, for each and every module topic. So by the time you're done with 100-200 questions, you would have a very solid error log. And now if you want, you can create pivots for this, create a summary for this. So what you'll realize is, maybe you'll come up with a summary like this, that I am misreading stimulus, or I'm, and this could be for, by the way, quant also. So I'm misreading the question. Let's put it this way: question or stimulus out of 100 questions. And for, if I got, if I've taken more time in, or whatever, I've made a mistake. Out of 100 questions, say for example, in 30 of them, I ended up doing this, because of which either I took more time or I got it incorrect. So once you understand the main reason because of which you're making a mistake, you would know what to do next. Are getting the point? But unless until you don't write down the core issue, unless until you don't do this, you would never be able to understand where you need to improve. Even if you're writing a calculation mistake, so for example, there could be a drop down here which says type of mistake for quant could be a calculation mistake. In comment, you can even mention what kind of calculation mistakes are you making. Are you making calculation mistakes because you're not able to solve equations properly? Are you making calculation mistakes because you're multiplying wrong? Are you making calculation mistakes because you're not good with percentages? What is the problem? You have to dig deep, because the moment you identify, you might realize out of 100 questions that the 20 that you got wrong, and 20 of them, maybe 7 of them, you made a mistake because of multiplication errors. So you know where you need to work on, you know where you need to be careful. Okay, there could be a problem, like say for example, you might realize, in fact, I had a discussion with one of the students today itself, that in out of the 10 mistakes, uh, the student made 3-4 mistakes in which the student was always missing out the nature of the variable. Okay, whether it is integer or a fraction, or is it zero, positive or negative, or zero. A very common mistake. But unless until you don't jot it down and figure out how many times are you making that mistake, you will not realize what to fix. But once you know this, it would be easy to fix. Is this part clear, guys? And I cannot, this is like really, really, really important. Believe me, if you can maintain a solid error log like this, you would know what to fix. Okay. And obviously, if like, you can talk to your mentors also, who can help you, distill this information and clearly tell you where you need to work on. Because so the 1.5 week that you have, ideally you fix your concept, you create a solid error log, writing down the type of mistakes that you're making. In application based, where you're taking more time, write down the exact reason for taking more time. If you're getting, even if you're getting correct, where exactly are you taking more time for? What are the errors that you're not able to figure out in SC quickly, you're not able to identify? Okay, or what kind of methodology are you using because of which you're taking more time? So I hope this part is clear to everyone. And see, this is the reason I'm telling you this is because if you are able to do this, you'll be able to improve very quickly. And I just want to give you an example of Akshat. He was one of our students who had to retake the GMAT, and he kind of improved in 24 days from 650 to 730. And I'm sharing the link with you guys. If you want to watch his interview, I would highly recommend to do so. You do that basically. Now in case of Akshat, what I'll just show you his ESR also, right? There were two kind of problems that he was facing. Number one, that he was weak in critical reasoning, as you can see out here, not doing well in critical reasoning at all. Okay, obviously reading comprehension is also an issue, and the sentence creation was good. And notice he had an anxiety issue, he had a poor timing problem also, that he used to take more time, lack of self confidence also. And though if he was given more time, notice he was able to get a high accuracy. But the moment when the time decreased, notice what's accuracy out here. Okay, so it was clearly a problem of timing, lack of confidence, and obviously critical listening was an issue for him, and a little bit of reading comprehension. Now at this point of time, Akshat could have gone and just started practicing critical listening. He would have said, okay, critical listening is bad, let me go and do 50 questions for critical listening and improve. But no, he did not go and do questions blindly. Okay, so I had a discussion with him. Akshat was my mentee actually. I talked to him, understood what was the core problem. Why was he making a mistake? Was he using the methodology properly or not? Asked him to go back to certain areas and improve. Like for example, if pre-thinking is the issue, learn certain frameworks to help you improve your pre-thinking, or do some general pre-thinking so that you can save on time. Try and identify why are you taking more time. So reviewing the solutions, very very important, even if you get it correct. So I'm just written it here guys. So he did that. Went back, even if you got the question correct, if it was taking 3 to 4 minutes, he used to go and review the solution in depth, and also try to understand the kind of mistakes he was making. Okay, so whether he was choosing out of scope options a lot, or was he choosing distortion. Like for example, if you're choosing a distortion, that means you have understood the stimulus decently well, but you are getting biased by one or two words, and because of which you might be making a mistake. Out of scope could be because the stimulus is not well understood, and you are uh, if when you're pre-thinking, you're going above and beyond and bringing outside information to get the answer. If you're marking irrelevant or opposite answers, then that clearly means that you have not understood the stimulus at all. So clearly kind of figuring out why are you making a mistake is very very important. And this is something that we talk about. In each and every option we tell you that okay, this is the reason that you might be making a mistake in. For each every solution we tell you what kind of a error what kind of a error is a particular option is there in a particular option, whether it's a distortion out of scope. So you'll be able to figure that out really well. Okay, and obviously you need to revisit your weak areas to improve understanding, which is kind of related to the first point. If there's any weak concept, you need to work on it. So I hope till this part it is clear to everyone that see, I'm giving you this example out here just to validate this fact that what I'm saying is not just for the sake of saying it. It works. It worked for Akshat. He was able to improve in just, again, as I said, in 24 days. This was his 650 attempt, and this is his 730 attempt. Look at his score. He moved from a 44th percentile to a 91st percentile. Okay, his even improved his RC by identifying his core mistakes. So, long story short, identify conceptual issues, work on it, work on application issues by improve. If you want to improve your timing, go through the solutions end to end, understand where you're taking more time, maintain a very solid error log, and not just an error log with just correct and incorrect data points. Not going to help you at all. So that should be a first 1.5 2 weeks time the way you need to spend and work on this. Okay, depending on how many core issues do you have. But once you do this, there's a very good chance that maximum areas you would have improved in maximum number of areas. Okay. I'll pause here. If you have any questions at this point of time, please feel free to ask. If you want to know more, so this is a strategy again, which is, as I said, there are certain assumptions out here. And if you want to talk more about your strategy, if you're preparing for GMAT, if you want to talk to us and figure out how we can help you, because I said we help Akshat also to improve this score very quickly in 4 weeks once we understood his core issue. If you want to do that, I've shared the Calendly link also. Please feel free to book a call with us, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. In the meantime, let's move on to week. I've written 2, but it's basically 2.5, 1.5, 2 weeks almost gone. You're end of the second week and the third week. In the next 10 to 12 days, which is technically the third week, almost there. There are 2 things that you need to start doing. One is take a mock test, because now you have identified, worked on your timing issue. Now you have improved on your conceptual issue. So take a mock test, and see how far are you from your score. So if your target score is say 730, and you're getting a 680, try and figure out where is that this 50%, 50 points gap. Okay, what are the places where you're still not doing well? Is it still a timing problem? If yes, where are you still taking more time? Is there still any conceptual gaps that you thought you might have improved, but you still need to work in? Or is there a topic that you thought that you were good at, but then you realize now that under time pressure you're not doing well? What is it? Okay. Once you identify that, you need to start taking a mix of short and full length quizzes, guys. And I've written it depends because it depends on the kind of, how much of a difference out here. If the difference is very small, like 710 to 730, and there are just one or two issues, you might be okay by just taking some short quizzes and working on only those topics that you're not doing well. And when I say short quizzes, I mean just 10-question quizzes. Okay. But let's just say there's a timing issue, huge timing issue. You're done, you're doing your verbal section, and by the time you're at your 60th minute, you realize you have just completed, say for example, 25 questions only, and you still have 10, 11 questions left, and you have just 5 minutes. Do you fall under this category? If that is the case, then it's a mix of both problem, conceptual and timing, and you do not have a lot of mocks. You can where you can keep on taking mocks. So what you can do is you can take some full length quizzes also. When I say quizzes, just go to question bank. Like in our case, we have this quiz, whatever quizzes that you're using. If you're using forum quizzes or for GC, you can do that also. But the point is, you can just take 36 questions, 65 minutes test. I know they might not be fully adaptive, but at least you would get, in our case, at least it's the difficulty level is pretty spread out. So it kind of gives you a flavor of the main exam only. So that way you can, try and, fine tune your timing aspect also, get used to the timing pressure. Uh, Try and see where are you taking more time. I've seen cases, one of the core cases, and I'm sure some of you, please let me know if you face this problem or not, is, you don't want to let go of questions. How many of you face this problem? You're doing a question and you feel, "Yeah, I'll get the answer. I'm about to get the answer." You might be in that kind of a situation, right? So if you're in that situation, there's a good chance that you're wasting time. How do you get rid of that habit? You have to actively work on that by taking full length quizzes and trying and seeing, if you let go of a question, how much does your accuracy improve. So this is kind of an experimentation that you can do in the next 10 to 12 days. Okay, and try and figure out how to improve, where to improve. And this is a cyclical process. By the way, obviously you need to review solutions, but please keep in mind it's a cyclical process. So once you take these quizzes, like short or long, whatever or both, you again take the next mock. Okay, try and see how much close have you got. Let's say for example from 680 you notice that you've reached 710. Okay, then obviously there are still some areas that you need to work in. Then again go back and work on, take a few more short quizzes, full length quizzes, work on it, and then again repeat this process. You'll notice that by the time you've taken your second or third mock, and if you're doing this properly, you would reach your target score. Okay, it should not be a problem at all. Okay, so I hope this part is clear, how you need to take mocks and the sectional quizzes. And this, as I said, could take you 10 to 12 days, where you might end up taking 3 to 4 mocks, and that should help you improve your mock scores. Okay. There's one thing which I want to add. This is something that we have discussed in other webinars also. I will share the webinar with you. Just give me one sec. Um, I don't have it handy, but I'll share with you. But the main point to say out here is that a lot of people come up and ask that I'm facing a problem, in timing. What should I do? How do I improve? And in that case, what I would say is you need to figure out what kind of timing strategy do you want to use. Okay. So, for example, by the way, I've got the link. Just give me one sec. Let me share that with you very quickly. One sec. So this timing or algorithm issue that I'm talking about, this has been discussed in detail in this YouTube session. I would highly recommend you to go through this one. Just share it in the chat box. But at a high level, I just want to discuss the strategy. Now, a lot of people, what they do is they believe that, okay, the first 15, 20 questions are very important, so I want to give all the time in that. That is not the ideal strategy, guys. Please keep in mind that the difficulty level will keep on increasing gradually. Okay, and so the timing should not be linear in nature, and the timing should not also be heavy in the first. You should not create a strategy where you're taking more time in the first 2 quarters. What ideally you should do is you should get good at solving questions, a type of questions based on the difficulty level. So for example, if you're doing an easy question, ideally you should be able to do it in 1.5 minutes, depending on whether you're dealing with an SC question or a CR question. If you're doing, a hard question, you might end up taking 145 to 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes also in some cases. So in the first quarter, if you deliberately, even if they're dealing with a medium question, you end up taking a lot of time, then your timing will be skewed. and you might not be able to do well also. So what we recommend is that you in the first quarter you ideally take somewhere along 140 seconds, 1 minute 40 seconds to solve the question, because most of the question that would be there would be of easy to medium type. Now the moment the difficulty level increases and you start getting medium to medium hard questions, you can definitely increase your timing. Okay. And then once you start getting medium hard to hard question, then you can again gradually increase your time. But notice the timing per question I'm increasing gradually. I'm not taking 2 minutes out here and 220 out here, and then we're taking another 220 out here, because then I will not be left any time with any time out here. Okay, and my score will dip a lot. And obviously in the link that I've shared with you, we have discussed why do we also suggest this strategy. So definitely go through that link. But long story short, what I want to say here is that you should be able to solve questions based on the difficulty levels. There are certain baselines which I want to add here, which is like we expect you to solve SC questions in 1.5 minute, CR in 2 minutes, and RC in 150. But keep in mind that you can adjust your time up and down depending on your comfort level. So if you're good with sentence correction questions, and I know people who are able to solve SC in a minute. So if you fall in that category, solve it in 1 minute, 1 minute 10 seconds, and you use that extra time for maybe for RC if you need more time to understand the RC. So these are just certain baselines. Don't take, these are not set in stone. Depending on your strength and weakness, adjust your timing, and also depending on the difficulty level, adjust your timing. But don't create a strategy where you say first 2 quarters are important, so I'll give all the time in the world in the first 2 quarters. That's not the right strategy. And the important thing which I mentioned now only is that devote the right amount of time based on the difficulty level. You have to get used to this habit. Sometimes people look at this 130 and think that I have 130 for all SC questions. No, there could be a difficult SC question where you need 2 minutes. But if you take 1.5 minutes for each one of them, then you'll not be able to do well, right? There could be an easy question where you need just 50 seconds, 40 seconds to do it, right? So adjust your timing based on the difficulty, which is very, very important. If you want to know more about it, as I said, please go through the link. Same for quant, by the way, we use the same strategy where if you're doing medium to medium hard question the first quarter, ideally you should not take more than 1.5 minutes for these ones. Okay. Now, once the difficulty level increases, increase your time to 2 minutes 10 seconds. And in the third quarter, mostly you'll get some super hard questions. Then you can take 2 minutes 40 seconds out here. And for the last quarter, you can keep less time, which is okay. And here you can be selective, by the way. I did not mention it in verbal, but in verbal quant, both the cases, if your accuracy in quarter 1, 2, 3 is very good, in quarter 4, you can take your chances. Okay. Here also, you need to devote the right amount of time. And in the third and fourth quarter, obviously, you can decide where you want to spend more time, where you want to spend less time, or if there's any question that you want to skip. Okay. DS, I've already mentioned you need to learn to apply the application of DS, how to solve a DS question properly, methodically, how to analyze the statement well. Because if you don't do that, there's a good chance that you might miss out on certain cases, or you might infer, something incorrect and not be able to solve it properly. Okay. This is again optional if you're targeting 50, 51 and you are good with your calculations. And if you know two methods for some questions, then you may use them to check, verify your answers in some cases. But this is pretty optional. Okay. But the first three are very important, devoting the right amount of time based on the difficulty level. In the third and fourth quarter, you can be a little selective and they give more or less time depending on your difficult, comfort level. And DS, most of the times in the exam, you might not even realize that you're making a mistake in a DS question. When the exams end, your exam will end, you'll realize, hey, I was expecting a good score, but I ended up with a 45, and you have no clue why. But in most cases, it's just because you made mistakes in DS questions. Okay. One more thing which I would add here, this is something which is there in another webinar, which where I've talked about my own experience of GMAT, that you might get some easy questions in between also. So like in quarter 3, I know it's written hard to very hard, but it's quite possible that out of the 7 to 8 questions that you get in this quarter, one or two might of them might be easy also. So don't panic out here. Okay. Don't panic that, hey, I'm getting an easy question. Am I doing well or not? There would be cases where you might get one or two easy and then one or two super hard questions. So they might average out the difficulty level in that way. Your main task is, that's why this is the first number point. If you get an easy question, give just 1.5 minutes to do this. Don't spend more time thinking, I'm in my third quarter, so I need to give more time. Okay, these are all indicative numbers. Okay. So that's about the timing strategy. That's so I hope in the second, in third week, roughly, this is what you need to do. Take mocks, identify your errors, take short and long quizzes. Timing strategy is something that you need to keep in mind when you're taking a mock, so that you can adjust and improve, change your timing. Also, as I said, target score, keep your target score also in mind. If your quant target score is 46, then that's fine. You can take a little bit more time here and there if you want to. But if you're targeting a 49 or a 50, then obviously this is a more better timing strategy that I've mentioned here. Okay. Now, the last week, let's say we are done with all of this stuff, then guys, understand the last week what I would want to do, what I would advise is there would be some, exam anxiety, right? So what I would say is reduce your time gradually in the last week, like the last 5 days, 4 days. Don't solve a lot of questions in that last week. Okay. Again, focus on quality over quantity. These I've mentioned in the last slide also. It's very important to do minimal number of questions, especially in areas where you're not doing well. Again, based on the error log. Look at your log, see where are you still making mistakes, and maybe you want to do some questions on those areas. Okay. And again, distancing oneself health and understanding application related errors means if you do a lot of questions now, you might not even understand where are you making mistakes. So this again is focusing on the quality over quantity part, and obviously take strategic timeouts during the test also. Uh, this is for the time for the main exam also, and this is also during the last week. So for example, if you're feeling very burnt out after stretching yourself for 3 weeks, take a day off. That's totally okay, because you need some time to also make sure that you retain everything, right? So it doesn't make sense to keep on doing questions again and again and again and again after every day. So the final points for the final weeks would be number one, in the last 5 weeks, I would, in 5 days or 6 days, I would say focus on revision. You have done a lot of, you might have done, a number of mistakes in the last 3 to 4 weeks. It is best to go through those mistakes, make a mental note of those mistakes really, really well. And if you want to do questions, as I said, quality over quantity, do a few questions on an area where you're still not comfortable with. And in the last week, maybe if you want, you can take one more mock. If you feel, okay, 3 or 4 is not enough, I need to take one more. But don't take 2 days before the test. Try to take it 3 days or 4 days before a test, and that's it. Okay. And again, I've put an asterisk out here because, again, this is not necessary. This is not 100%. It's not a rule. If you feel that you're confident after 3 to 4 tests that you're okay with it, then you can just focus on this part. This is like really, really, really important. Don't do a lot of new questions. And as I mentioned, please chill a little bit, and don't change your strategy in the last minute. What I mean by strategies, there are two major mistakes that I've seen people make in the exam. Is number one is changing the order. So in the mocks, they might be doing quant first, verbal second, or verbal first, quant second, and the main exam, for some weird reason, you might end up choosing the different order. If you do make a mistake like this, it's gonna harm you a lot. Don't do this. Number two is don't even change your strategy a bit in the exam. Like for example, in the exam, you might have a sudden urge of giving more time again in the first 2 quarters because now you're panicking and you want to do well in the first 2 quarters. But don't do that. If in the mocks, if you were solving the question naturally and you were able to get a 49, 50 and a V 40, 41, then just follow that strategy because that's gonna work. So it doesn't make to change strategy, and don't panic if like in the first 5 questions you're not able to solve a question. It's totally okay if you're not able to do it. That's one or two mistakes per quarter is still fine. Your overall score might drop by 1 or 2 points, but why panic and drop your score by 3, 4, or 5, 6 points? Right? Doesn't make sense. So take strategic breaks, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that if you are panicking after doing 5 questions, realizing I made a mistake in one, pause yourself. Tell yourself this, that one mistake is not gonna hamper my exam. At the max, I might not get a 50, I might get a 49, but I'll still get a 49, or I might get a 41 in verbal. Instead of a 41, I might get a 39 in verbal. But 39 is still better than a 30, right? So why screw up the whole exam? Okay. So yeah, okay, so that's it from my end. If you have any questions, guys, please feel free to ask. I'm there for another 5, 10 minutes. Uh, just to summarize, if you really want to prepare in 4 weeks, I would highly recommend that you spend the first 2 weeks on fine tuning, focusing and figuring out where are the areas that you're not doing well in, and figuring out where it's a conceptual issue, an application issue, and fixing it. Maintain a solid error log to figure out your areas of improvements, and work on those actively. From the third week, you can start taking mocks and maintain a cyclical process by take mocks, identify your weak areas, take sectional tests to improve it. Do that for at least 2 to 3 cycles, and you'll automatically see the difference in your score. You should be able to improve very quickly. And the last week, focus on revising. Quality over quantity, as I said, it's like really, really important to do that. Once you work on this, revision, that is definitely gonna help you out. Okay. So, any questions, anyone? I'll wait for another minute. And in the meantime, once again, if you want to talk to us and figure out how we can help you improve, I am sharing a Calendly link. Please feel free to book a call with us. And if you want to know more about these strategies, right, like how to solve sentence question questions or what's the best way to solve critical reasoning, you can take a look at a free trial also. I am sharing the link of that too in the chat box. Okay, guys, so I don't see any questions in the chat box. I'm ending the session. All the best, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to write to us. I am sharing our email ID also, just in case if you want to talk to us, please feel free to write to us on this email ID, guys. Have a great day. Bye.